Greetings, friends, fellow citizens, fellow patriots, and even non-citizens from around the world who watch our podcast. Welcome to this week's edition of the We the People Convention weekly news and opinion podcast. My name is Tom Zawistowski, and I'm the host of this podcast, and I'm also the president of the We the People Convention organization. And we thank you for taking your time to join this podcast so that you can be informed enough to protect and defend your and our individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. For those of you who are new to the podcast, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the news of the week. And oh, baby, there's just so much going on. We're in Trump time, and there's never been anything like it. But when you're done, you're going to know what's going on in our country and in our world that affects you directly. And then we're going to talk about things you and I can and should do to help protect ourselves, to help advance our country, to make it prosperous. So thank you for joining us. I also want to thank our generous donors to the We the People Convention who have supported us for 16 years and pay for this podcast and our fantastic website at wethepeopleconvention.org, our social media on YouTube, Facebook, MeWe, Gab, Getter, Rumble, you just name it, we're on it. And who also help us support other conservative groups that are doing great work that that need our support. Thank you to our donors, and if you can become one, please go to wethepeopleconvention.org and click on the donate link, because we will make good use of your donation. And if you don't believe that, if you don't understand, if you're new to this organization, at wethepeopleconvention.org, there's like 4 buttons on the front page, and one of them is info about the WTPC, where you will see the impact that this organization has had on our nation and how we have played a key role in bringing us to this point where we're on the verge of defeating the radical left, the Marxists, and the Islamists in this world. So welcome to everyone. Thank you for being with us. The all-time low temperature on this date in Akron, Ohio is -7 degrees, which was set in the horrible winter storm of 1976, which I survived and was here to witness and never thought I'd see again. But today, when I got up, our air temperature was -14. We didn't just break the record, we smashed it. And I know many of you, many of our members at the We the People Convention organization, many of our viewers are suffering through this really tough week. And we pray for you. We want all of you to keep them in mind. We'll cover some details about that before the end of the first half of the podcast. But we're thinking about all of you. And remember, it's up to us to take care of each other. So reach out, all right? Make sure your neighbor's okay. Make sure your family members are okay. It's up to us to take care of each other, okay? Now, I have an insanely packed podcast today, so I'm going to get right into it and not spend too much time on the open. And it starts, where everything, the focus of everything has been Minneapolis. And after the podcast we did last week, there was another shooting. Another protester was killed by ICE, and that has just kind of set the whole stage for this week. Armed protester shot and killed by ICE agents is a story that's on the We the People Convention website. And I have on that page a very intelligent story by a guy that I really appreciate, Michael Shellenberger, who is really a smart guy, used to be totally left, has moved in our direction because he's seen the lies of the left. And he wrote an article on his Substack, and he said the left is getting people killed, and it's intentional. And he goes and says, Democrats and the media spent decades programming people to view basic law and border enforcement as fascist. That's a lie, but they did it on purpose. A federal immigration and customs officer in Minnesota shot a second person dead yesterday. Most of the debate since then has focused, understandably, on whether the ICE agent acted in what he perceived to be self-defense. Whatever the case, it is clear that by encouraging people to interfere with law enforcement operations, the left is getting people killed. Videos show both victims, Renee Good and Alex Preddy, impeding law enforcement operations, which progressive nonprofits, Democrats, and liberal influencers have been encouraging for months, not to mention communists who we will document. Walz and other Democrats have blocked state and local enforcement from working with ICE, which has contributed to the increasingly risky behavior by anti-ICE activists like Good and Preddy, and thus growing danger to everyone involved. There were no Minneapolis police visible in the videos of Good and Preddy's death, and they should have been there to keep citizens back and let ICE do their job, and they weren't there. And many of America's largest progressive cities and states are all openly defiant of federal law, declaring themselves sanctuaries that protect illegal migrants from federal government. That is the definition of insurrection. That's what that is. This is an insurrection. And so I wrote in this article and on X, and I sent to President Trump at whitehouse.gov/contacts, and I asked you last week to act. And I said, we urge you, President Trump, to invoke the Insurrection Act to arrest Walz, Fry, and Ellison, and all government officials in Minnesota and nationally who are promoting insurrection and the destruction of our nation. We need the military to confront and defeat the Marxist army that is funded and organized in Minneapolis to destroy ICE and then our nation. There can be no retreat, Mr. President, ! We are either a nation of laws or we're not a nation at all. Enough words. And then quoting him from Butler, fight, fight, fight. And then I put a link that said, click here to send your message to President Trump. And many, many of you did. And I hope you did, because that's the right message. What President Trump did is he decided to pivot and bring Kristi Noem out and Varvano, the ICE commissioner guy, and bring in Tom Homan. And that was, you're going to see, that's a really good move. And it doesn't signify what the left and the media want you to think it signifies. But he said in a Truth Social post, that is why I hear a guy calling on Governor Walz, Mayor Fry, and every Democrat, governor and mayor in the United States of America to formally cooperate with the Trump administration to enforce our nation's laws rather than resist and stoke the flames of division, chaos, and violence. Governor Walz and Mayor Fry should turn over all criminal illegal aliens they are currently holding in their state prisons and jails. State and local law enforcement must agree to turn over all illegal aliens arrested by local police. And 3, local police must assist federal law enforcement in apprehending and detaining illegal aliens who are wanted for crimes. Okay, not the people just the crime is breaking into our country. He's talking about people who are murderers and rapists. Not wrong to ask local police to help arrest murderers and rapists. Democratic politicians must partner with the federal government to protect American citizens in the rapid removal of all criminal illegal aliens in our country. Some Democrats in places like Memphis, Tennessee, or Washington, D.C. have done so, resulting in safer streets for all. So that's how this started. So he went and sent in Tom Homan, okay? And, I posted this video on our website in the video section. Homan lays down the truth in First Minnesota Briefing. It's terrific. This video, he speaks for I think 30 minutes or 28 minutes, and then there's question and answer. But Tom Homan, man, what an American hero. You have to go watch that. And so you're going to say, well, what did he say? But let me play you a clip of what he said.
There are those in the immigrants' rights community who have argued passionately that we should simply provide those who are illegally with legal status, or at least ignore the laws on the books and put an end to deportation until we have better laws. And often this argument is framed in moral terms. Why should we punish people who are just trying to earn a living? I recognize the sense of compassion that drives this argument. But I believe such an indiscriminate approach would be both unwise and unfair. It would suggest to those thinking about coming here illegally that there will be no repercussions for such a decision. And this could lead to a surge in more illegal immigration. And it would also ignore the millions of people around the world who are waiting in line to come here legally. Ultimately, our nation, like all nations, has the right and obligation to control its borders and set laws for residency and citizenship. And no matter how decent they are, no matter their reasons, the 11 million who broke these laws should be held accountable.
That wasn't Tom Homan. That was Barack Hussein Obama, the Messiah, 15 years ago. You know what? Tom Homan said those exact words just this week. Go watch it, okay? It's on our website. Watch it and share it. Tom Homan says exactly the same words. Oh, but Tom Homan's a Nazi, a fascist. He should be killed. His family should be attacked. But Barack Obama, no, he's okay. Yeah, share that. Share that video. It'll be linked in our podcast page because that's the hypocrisy of it all. All right? And so here's the bottom line. This is all a charade. It's a cover-up. It's not about stopping ICE. It's not about, these two people who were killed. It's not about fascists or Trump. It's about the revolution. It's about the left trying to destroy our country, literally take over our country. Andy Ngo and James O'Keefe both posted stories this week that said, you don't understand. President Trump and most of our government doesn't understand. The people out here on the streets in Minneapolis are dedicated Marxists. They believe it with their entire soul, and they're willing to die for the revolution. They are willing to die to kill America. Are we willing to die to save America? Are we willing to fight them? That's the question. They're not going away. There's no reasoning with these people. There's none, okay? And the statistics show they have this is a fraud on its face. Here's a poll that shows voters on ICE protests. Are each of the following legitimate forms of protest that should be protected by law? Criticizing government policy. 80% said yes, that should be protected. Marching through city streets, 72% of Americans say that should be protected. Shouting slogans, 70% say yes, that should be protected. I don't know why those aren't 100. In our country, they should be 100. But then, blocking government officials from carrying out their duties, only 19% of Americans say that's okay. Disrupting worship services, we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. Only 18% that's okay. Using a car to block traffic, 15% say it's okay. Making physical threats against elected politicians, only 14%. And I would say, why aren't those zero? Who's nutty enough to think you should be able to, attack politicians unless you're a Marxist who wants to violently overthrow the government? They have no standing. Here's another little poll that just came out. Breaking, a majority of Minnesotans say state and local authorities should help with immigration enforcement. Here's a question from KSTP TV. Should state and local authorities help with immigration enforcement? 50% of Minnesotans say yes, 36% say no, and 13% not sure because they're being blinded by the propaganda. Even in Minneapolis, even in Minnesota, Fry and Walz and these people are not with the people. They're lying. You know what they're with? They're with the commies. They're with the Somali fraud. They're with rigged elections. Ellison, Walz, Fry, none of them get elected if the Somalis don't register to vote and get to vote illegally. Do you understand? That's what this is about. That's what they're protecting, okay? And for those of you who are concerned and didn't watch Tom Homan, and I'm asking you a direct ask, you need to watch Tom Homan's press conference on our website. He didn't surrender, and neither is Trump, and he couldn't have been any clearer. Here it is.
We are not surrendering the president's mission on immigration enforcement. Let's make that clear. prioritization of criminal aliens doesn't mean we forget about everybody else. That's just simply ridiculous. But when you have a criminal standing here and a non-criminal standing there, that criminal always should be targeted first because he's a significant concern to the safety and security of the community.
Okay? Not backing down. Homan's not backing down. He said real simply, he said to Walls, Fry, and Ellison, the things that Trump put, that I read to you, those 4 points, the illegals, criminals in your jails, you turn them over to us. The ones that you arrest, you turn them over to us. You help us arrest violent criminals, okay? Those things. He said, you do those things, we're going to reduce our force dramatically. You know why? We don't need them. We can send one agent to the jail to arrest an illegal that you're already holding. We got to send 16 agents to his house to track him down when you let him go. It's on you. Well, Walls and Fry and those guys, well, Homan kind of suggested that they've agreed to cooperate a little bit. They've come out and just said, no way, no way. All right? That's okay. We're not backing down. Homan says we're not leaving until we get the job done. And he means it. And you'll see that he means it in that piece, okay? So the thing that is, was another major story, because we're screaming that this is an organized effort. This is not, these are not people who care about their neighbors, right? They use all this language to mislead you. These are not American citizens. They're not your neighbors. They're illegals who broke into our country with the help of Joe Biden and the Marxists in the Obama administration, who ran the Biden administration, who brought these people here to overthrow elections, to launder our tax dollars, to keep the Marxist, leftist, Democrat, Communist Party winning elections, at least in these quote-unquote illegal sanctuary cities, okay? That's what that's all about. Well, some of our people, citizens, journalists, were tracking, and I showed you last week, these chat meetings where they were organizing. You block the road, we'll surround them. You can get support here. Tell us where we need to send a lawyer. All that stuff, okay? And Kash Patel was told about this, and they said they should be worried. He confirms the FBI is investigating the Signal chat groups. All right? So he said, the Federal Bureau of Investigation Director Kash Patel has confirmed the Bureau is actively investigating chat groups on the encrypted messaging app Signal that are reportedly being used to identify, track, and disrupt federal law enforcement. Yeah, reportedly, including members of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement and the Customs and Border Protection. Patel confirmed in an interview January 26 that an investigation is underway. When told that people within the chats were reported scared of the consequences of being identified, he stated they should be scared. If they break the law, they should be worried. It's that simple. We will protect law enforcement. We will make sure they have the security and safety to do their job. Okay? Well, Glenn Beck had a nice piece this week where he's saying, where's the NSA? Where's all these people who spied on us? Right, who are tracking our cell phones, who are getting Bank of America to give all of our bank information from January 6th. Where's that action for these guys, for these protesters, right? Oh, we don't see that. But you know what we did see? Yeah, we saw something pretty dang cool. Let me show you this to you. I'm putting it up on the screen, guys. I'm just holding here. It says, we're not kidding. Breaking, hackers just targeted the Stop ICE website and threatened to leak everyone's identity to the feds. Okay? Now remember, they made a big deal about someone leaked all these ICE agents' identities to this Stop ICE website. And the guy was yucking it up about, oh yeah, this is great, see? Because people hate this and we're going to expose all those agents and their families, their home addresses and all that stuff. Yeah, well, funny thing happened this week. Red Hat is starting to notice, yes, the hackers of Stop ICE weren't kidding. I can personally testify that the names, logins, passwords, locations down to coordinates, and phone numbers of 100,000 users were all sent to FBI, ICE, Homeland Security, and more. Sherman Austin was given time to tell his users of the security breach. He failed his lesson. They just turned over every lefty who is a member of Stop ICE's records to the FBI. Hey, Cash, let's see some arrests, right? Let's see some arrests. Hambani, let's see some charges. Hey, the funders, can we get that taken care of? We the people, citizen journalists, gave this to the FBI because why? Our security agencies are protecting you and I. And it's not just domestic. And they'll say, oh, we're not allowed to spy on the American people, except they spied on us all the frickin' time, right? But it's not just that. It's international. And I'm going to play for you this clip from Bill O'Reilly. And I know you guys, you should know Bill O'Reilly has been sick. And he had some sort of a surgery last week. And he's back on the air. But man, it takes a lot to get Bill O'Reilly this fired up. Listen to what Bill O'Reilly is saying here, because this is the story. Listen.
Here's the most important part of this whole thing, unreported, okay? There is a man in Shanghai, China, an American citizen. His name is Neville Roy Singham. He works with the Beijing government. He is funneling millions of dollars into the United States of America through 501s like Party for Socialism and Liberation, Democratic Socialists of America, Minnesota Immigration Rights Action Committee. There he is, okay? Connecticut-born, 71 years old, billionaire tech guy. He is funneling money here to these radical organizations who are then agitating professional people, communists mostly, because Singham's a communist, all right, to go in and foster rebellion. You heard that story reported? That is absolutely true. The man has been investigated by the FBI in the past, this Singham character, okay? This isn't some organic thing. This is a foreign power, Beijing, using this American citizen who lives openly in Shanghai in luxury, knowing that this man is funneling tens of millions, probably more, into this country to try to destroy the government. What the deuce is that? Where are you, New York Times? All right? That's the second part of the story. There's a local federal story, and there's the international story. And I've had it. You don't like what I'm saying? Blank you, because I'm telling you the truth.
Yeah. Have you heard that? Have you heard it reported? Not a word. Not a word, damn it. I'm as mad as Bill O'Reilly. You should be as mad as Bill O'Reilly. That video will be linked on our podcast page at wethepeopleconvention.org. How many people are you going to send that to? It's time to wake the hell up. We're at war with the communist Chinese and the Russians and a bunch of other people who hate our guts, who hate freedom and liberty, who hate you personally. These ICE protesters would kill you in a second. And they're not afraid. And we can't be afraid. But we got to fight the fight, damn it. Because it's not going away. It can only happen one way. We have to win. We have to win. And that means we have to confront them. So share that. Understand that this is a global threat to us. And where's it concentrated? Here's a nice little chart that says, of all the violent confrontations with ICE, 63% of them come from 9 counties. Okay? Of the other 3,134 counties, there's only 64 incidents in all those counties in the United States. And in just 9 counties, there's been 110 confrontations. And you can see, if you're watching, the sanctuary city mayors and a map of the United States that show Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Denver, Minneapolis, Chicago, Newark, New York City. This is where they put their money to build their army. They brought illegals in. Oh, we're a sanctuary city. Bring in all these gang members, these thugs, these murderers, these rapists, these child traffickers. Bring them into our cities. Yeah. Why? Power. Money. The revolution. It's about the revolution. That's what this is about. The overthrow of the United States and the West. That's what this is about. That's why the same thing is happening in Europe and everywhere else. The end of your way of life is what you're fighting for. That's really important for you to recognize. So now, what do? Oh, the George Floyd moment. Let's get some of our people killed, and then let's use that to make a hoax up to get people to riot. And even though we're the ones funding the rioters, it'll look on TV like these are just Americans who are upset about race relationships, right? Bullcrap. All a lie. A hoax. George Floyd did not die from police brutality. He died of a fentanyl overdose. Okay? That's a fact. That's the coroner's report says. It's a lie. The officer Chauvin's in prison should be let out. It's criminal what they did to him. But this is the power of propaganda. And when you control the courts, which has happened in Minneapolis, you can get away with a lot. We got to fight them at every step. Okay? So what did they do yesterday? Oh, we're going to declare a shutdown. Bring this country to a halt, so our source says. Singham Network, students found nationwide anti-ICE shutdown. We're going to shut it all down, don't you know? No, you're not going to shut it all down. No, we don't know. This isn't 2020. You and I, the We the People Convention, the Tea Party movement, the MAGA movement, President Trump, we've spent a lot of years, 16 years of our lives to wake people up, to educate them by watching this podcast, by producing this podcast for you to share with everyone. We're not fooled by your BS anymore. We understand what's going on, and we know how dangerous it is. So they said, no work, no school, no shopping. Anti-ICE efforts continue to ramp up in Minnesota, and the Chinese Communist Party-linked Access Network is seeking to take the shutdown efforts nationwide. A collection of far-left groups led by Communist Activist Network tied to the CCP-linked millionaire Marxist Neville Roy Singham is attempting to organize a nationwide anti-ICE school and business shutdown, with anti-Israeli activist Linda Sarsour declaring that we will bring this country to a halt. Oh yeah, you will? The general strike effort scheduled for yesterday in an attempt to replicate a Minnesota-wide anti-ICE shutdown, which occurred last Friday and was organized by many of the same far-left groups, was a total fail. You didn't even know about it, did you? How many happened? I tried to search for stories. Oh yeah, typical places. In Denver, they had their school kids were out protesting. 1,000 students were out protesting. Oh yeah? There's your Marxist teachers unions using your children as props, as stooges, to make people think, oh, this is really a serious issue. It's fake. It's astroturf. Okay? In Los Angeles, in Los Angeles, you got the same crap you always get, right? Anti-ICE crowd protesters in Los Angeles clashed Friday night with federal agents as part of a national anti-immigration call to action. The demonstration began peacefully, of course they always do, outside of Los Angeles City Hall, but a large group of protesters later clashed with federal agents outside the Edward Roybal Federal Building, where they threw objects at the federal law enforcement officers. Some protesters pushed a large construction dumpster towards the agents, who deployed pepper balls and tear gas at the crowd. The LAPD additionally said it arrested some protesters who violated multiple dispersal orders and attacked officers who were pushing them out of an intersection after the group blocked the road. It's not immediately clear how many were arrested. Well, if it's in LA, probably none of them. And if they were probably let out by leftist George Soros prosecutors who said, oh, it's okay for you to attack the federal government and our officers because we're in an insurrection. And of course, the commie mayor of LA, she is an actual communist. She went to Cuba for training. She's a commie. Peaceful protest is a constitutional right, Mayor Karen Bass wrote on X. I urge Angelenos to exercise that right safely and not give this administration an excuse to escalate. Los Angeles stands together. Yeah, you're not going to stand for long because we have to take them down. We have to take them down. The Karen Basses and those people need to be arrested. The people protesting are not protesters. They are organized communist revolutionaries who need to be arrested for not just insurrection, but sedition and all kinds of other things. That's where we're headed. It's just a matter of when. We cannot avoid it, no matter how much we want. So that's going to happen. And guess what? They will tell you, oh, we're in the right. These are our neighbors. Nobody wants these people, thrown out of the country. Remember Barack Obama? Watch the piece I just showed you, right? Go back and watch that. He says, you gotta go. Even if you're a hardworking, good person, you came here illegally, you gotta go, because if you don't go, then everybody else will try to come, right? Yeah. Well, guess what? You and I believe that. You want the proof? Oh, how about CNN? Here's your proof.
Sometimes I like blunt questions because they sort of get at the underlying feelings that people have. So this is about as blunt a question as you can get. Deport all immigrants here illegally. I will note the ABC News poll asked about undocumented immigrants. So we have slightly different questions, but these were all taken within the last month. And there's real uniformity here. That's what I really think you see. You see real uniformity. Deport all immigrants who are here illegally. 55% of the New York Times. Marquette, 64%. CBS News, 57%. ABC News with a slightly different question, 56%. So what you're seeing essentially here is a very clear indication that a majority of Americans, in fact, when they're asked this blunt question, which I believe gets at the underlying feelings, do in fact want to deport all immigrants who are here illegally. There's no arguing with these different numbers because they're all essentially the same across 4 different pollsters. Feelings towards immigration in this country, feelings towards undocumented immigrants and deporting all of them have become considerably more hawkish, and I think that gives Donald Trump much more leverage to go with the American people and sort of have these hawkish, some might say harsh, different rhetoric and also issue-based sort of going after immigrants who are here illegally, want immigration levels decreased. This includes legal and illegal immigration. Look at this. Last year, 55%. That is the highest level since the 9/11 aftermath. You go back just to 2020.
And this, again, legal and illegal. So people want less people coming into the country.
Exactly. They want less people coming into the country. Look at that. That's a 14-point rise from 2023. You go back to 2016 when Donald Trump again was running for president the first time. It was 38%. That's a 17-point rise. So the bottom line is more folks want people who are here illegally deported, and their overall feelings towards immigration have become considerably more hawkish.
63% say they're okay with deporting immigrants who are here illegally and arrived in the last 4 years. 87% are good with deporting immigrants who are here illegally and have criminal records.
What more do you want? We're with you, President Trump. We're with you, Tom Homan. We're with you, Kristi Noem. We're with ICE. We voted for that. You and I voted for that just over a year ago. The majority of Americans are clear. We see the damage. And the left is gaslighting you when they try to say, oh, no, people aren't for this. They don't want to see these people, taken out of the cities. Yeah, we do. And we expect them to. And, oh, yeah, guess what? They are. They are getting taken out. Deportations, ICE street arrests are way up, and so are arrests of immigrants with no criminal convictions. Okay? This is what you voted for. This is what we want. The jump in arrests and transfers to ICE custody resulted in a 7-fold increase in arrests of people with no convictions, analysis found. In the first 9 months of Trump administration, a jump in the number of immigration-related street arrests led to an increase in the number of deportations initiated inside the U.S. We've documented and away from the border by more than 4.5 times. Then, they started to go inside, and much of the steep increase was attributed to street arrests rising by more than a factor of 11, because as we went into cities like Minneapolis, like Chicago, like LA, and we didn't get cooperation from the local government agencies to turn over illegals that they had in their custody, we had to do even more. This resulted in a 7-fold increase in arrests of people with no convictions. Arrests of people with convictions also went up about 30%, but not as much as those without convictions. It's real simple. They got to go one way or the other. We're using economic means, but we're also using law enforcement. They let 20 million people in here illegally, and now they want to shut down the government to protect them. We're going to talk about that before the end of the first half here in a minute. But the bottom line is, that's not what we're going to do, kids. We're going to get them out of the country, whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. That's what Tom Homan says in that video you got to watch and share. So I told you last week about they headed to Maine to get 1,400 people, and ICE main operation nabs 200 of them in just 5 days. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement has arrested more than 200 people in Maine over the past 5 days as part of an enforcement surge that has drawn sharp criticism from Democratic Governor Janet Mills, who has called on President Trump to remove the agents from the state. Janet Mills literally got money and votes from Somali fraudsters in Maine. The story's on our website, okay? And so, of course, she doesn't want ICE there. She doesn't want them to be arrested. The brave men and women of ICE who are already arrested more than 200 illegal aliens in Maine in the last 5 days. Department of Homeland Security Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin said in a statement at a local radio station, and there's more to come because we voted for that, and that's the only way to restore our culture, by getting people out of our country who don't believe in anything in our Constitution, do not believe in our way of life, do not believe in our Judeo-Christian values. They must go. Watch the Gad Sad 2.5-minute video that's in our video section at WeThePeopleConvention.org that says, do these things to save the West. One of them, the biggest one, is this: stop the illegal immigrants and deport those who will never assimilate, okay? But then we have stupid people, stupid Republicans, and all of our viewers in Oklahoma, do me a favor. Call this clown's office this week. GOP Governor Stitt tells Trump to calm politics by letting, get this, states import migrants. What are you talking about? President Donald Trump should calm the escalating Minnesota battle over migration by allowing states to import a new sub-citizen category of cheap foreign workers for U.S. jobs, says Oklahoma Republican Governor Kevin Stitt. Here's a picture of this clown. How did he ever become governor of Oklahoma? I'd like to ask you guys. Well, he needs to go. This is brain dead. We have to stop politicizing the fight over immigration. We need real solutions on immigration reform, Stitz told CNN, of course, on Sunday, adding, and I believe that I've got a great solution, that we should give the states the authority to do workforce permits. He seemed to argue that state-run immigration could end partisan fights over illegal immigration. Are you insane? You're going to have every state decide their own immigration policy? And then how do you regulate your federal funding of all the things that Oklahoma uses our money in it from people in Ohio, from people in all over the country, in other states? We pay our taxes. That money goes to people in Oklahoma who are migrants, who are on food stamps, who are on Medicare, Social Security, all kinds of these benefits that are being ripped off, these daycare centers, these senior care centers. This clown thinks that's a solution? Yeah, stupid isn't limited to the Democrat Party, is it? No, it's not. Give him a call this week. Let him know he should resign. He should resign. He's not fit for office. He's a moron. He's dangerous to Oklahoma. If he thinks that, what other stupid ideas does he have? Wow. So then, the big story, this week, or that's a big story, because big stories, man, I got 50 big stories for you this week. But a story this week was that Don Lemon finally got arrested for participating in breaking into the church. Okay, journalists. See, this is from CBS News or AP. Journalist Don Lemon has been arrested after he covered a Minnesota church protest. That headline is a bold-faced lie. First of all, he's not a journalist. He's just like these other citizen journalists now. He was fired from CNN, okay? But they want to say, oh, he was allowed to cover this illegal act. But he wasn't. He was charged with civil rights violations. Journalist Don Lemon and 3 other people were arrested Friday in connection with an anti-immigration enforcement protest that disrupted a service at a Minnesota church and increased tensions between residents and federal officials. And so they're going to make him a martyr, and we're going to make him a martyr because he is caught dead to rights. You want to get it chapter and verse? Go watch Megyn Kelly's podcast from Friday, where she will explain to you and show you that Don Lemon's going to prison because what he did violates several federal statutes, and the U.S. Constitution. Those people were assaulted in that church. Don Lemon was part of that, and he's going to go to jail for a long time. Trust me, they got him. And the media is going to try to make a martyr out of him. Laugh at them. Laugh at them. Because, they were more than happy. And Julie Kelly writes about this, the great Julie Kelly, who covered January 6th like no one else because the media ignored it. Oh, yeah. When the people in the crowd who were citizen journalists who were trying to cover January 6th, when they said, I'm just here filming it, they said, oh, no, you're not journalists. You're going to be charged just like the people who were protesting inside the Capitol. Now that's going to come back. It's going to get them. Because this two-sided law thing bites both ways. You're going to see some more of that. So I said, what are they going to do? They're going to shut down the government. The Democrats, again, I showed you the polls. Why would you be so stupid as to shut down the government because you want to defund ICE? The same people who defunded the police now want to defund ICE. And they're gonna shut down the government. And so you need to make it clear why they're doing this. Because remember, they shut down the government before because we were hurting millions of people by cutting their medical health care coverage. Until when they said that and shut down the government, we started investigating who was getting these subsidies and how much fraud there was and how much money the insurance companies were getting. And we disclosed, you learned on this podcast and elsewhere, that, Obamacare was a scam to put billions of dollars in insurance companies who kicked back donations to Democrats. 96% of the donations from pharma, big pharma and healthcare companies went to Democrats. That's why Obamacare existed. Well, what do we have here? Oh, we want to shut down ICE. Why? Because ICE is shutting down the next gravy train, right? The fraud in all of our social programs, the NGOs and U.S. aid were giving out that went what? To the governor of Maine, to the governor of Minneapolis, to Karen Bass, to Newsom, to all these peoples. That's why they want to get rid of it. Can you articulate that? Can you articulate that to people who want to see it? So the White House and Democrats reach a deal to fund the government, and there was a bunch of drama yesterday because the government right now, as I'm speaking to you this morning, is shut down, okay? Why is it shut down? Well, despite the Senate's passage of the bill to fund the government last night, the House won't be back in session until Monday, and they have to vote on a change. They were supposed to pass the 6 appropriations bills that the House had passed, and they passed 5 of them, but they are holding out the one bill that has DHS in it because the left wants to defund DHS. So now we're going to do a CR. They're going to pass the other 5 and then do a continuing resolution to fund Homeland Security while the Democrats try to force Republicans and President Trump to screw over ICE. It ain't going to happen, but the government is not going to be shut down for more than a couple of, 72 hours. Federal government entered a partial government shutdown just after midnight on Saturday, despite the Senate's passage of legislation hours earlier to prevent it. The shutdown affected the Departments of Defense, Labor, Health and Human Services, Education, Transportation, Housing and Urban Development, and Homeland Security. It is expected to only last the weekend, with the House vote to reopen the government scheduled for Monday. The House vote not scheduled until 6:30 p.m. local time on Monday because they're having a storm in Washington and then travel's difficult and all that. Nonetheless, federal employees in the departments will likely be furloughed for the day of Monday, despite expectations the amended deal will pass. That's because federal law requires the government to carry out shutdown procedures once funding for an agency has lapsed, which it did last night. Under the new legislation, full-year funding will be authorized for all agencies in the package except the Department of Homeland Security. Instead, the legislation punts the deadline for this funding down the line 2 weeks to give law workers time to work through negotiations to amend full-year funding for the agency. Here's what Schumer wants. Here's what they're doing. Senate Democrats, led by Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, announced 3 demands. Here they are. Schumer said the first demand would end roving patrols by ICE agents in U.S. cities, tightening warrant requirements, and require greater coordination between federal agents and state and local law enforcement. You can't do that, because what they want is for we the people, our government, which we voted, and the polls show we want all the illegals who came here illegally to be deported. They want us to have to go to court in advance and get a warrant, 20 million warrants. Yeah, how long do you think that'll take? Can't happen. Can't happen. That's their first demand. It gets worse. Second demand calls for increased accountability for ICE agents. Federal agents should be held to use the same use of force policies that apply to state and local law enforcement and be held accountable when they violate those rules. What the heck does that even mean? Okay? So that's probably going to be the one that gets negotiated. This third one is a no-go. The third proposal would require ICE and other immigration agents to operate without masks, wear body cams, and carry state-issued identification all times. There is no way, zero chance, you can shut down the government from now till the year 2030, and we ain't going to go to that. Because why do they want the ICE agents to not wear masks? So they can attack them, so they can use facial recognition software and go after their families and intimidate them. Oh yeah, we're going to agree to that. I got in a fight with one of my relatives about that. He's going, why does ICE wear masks? Because they have to. They never did until you started doxing them, and no one paid a price for that. That's the problem. The criminals aren't paying a big enough price. We're not going to agree to this. So anyway, the bottom line is the government is shut down. You're not even going to notice, okay? It's going to be back up on Monday, and then they'll spend 2 weeks with the Democrats trying to pretend that anyone but them gives a crap about this, and we're not going to give an inch, okay? We're not going to give an inch. So before we get to the end of the first half here of the podcast, I want to cover the storms that happened, last week. When I started the podcast was when the big storm came the next day, okay? And it's been a tough week. Deaths reported as winter storm leaves 879,000 without power, 11,400 flights canceled, and it lingered all week. There were like 36 people killed, okay? And it's been a really tough week. I told you how cold it is here. You can see outside the window. I mean, cold like we've never seen, literally, in recorded history, certainly not in our lifetimes. Unbelievable snow. We still have, 16 inches of snow sitting on the ground here. And the good news was we didn't get more snow. And the good news is we didn't get any power outages. I'm going to talk about that too, an interesting story that came up. But anyway, let me just say where we are right now. Over 185,000 Americans are still without power a week later. That's bad. That's tough, man. Okay. And a second storm today is literally moving through North Carolina is getting like 12 inches of snow as I'm doing this podcast on January 31st, at 9 o'clock in the morning. So this other storm is coming through, but we've done the best we can. As the National Guard clears debris and community members conduct outreach, the eastern U.S. braces for another major storm. Nashville, over 185,000 Americans were without power nearly 1 week after the deadly winter storm swept through 2/3 of the country. States that faced ongoing power outages include Mississippi, got really hit hard, Tennessee, Louisiana, and Texas. Man, we're praying for you guys. We're praying for you. The northern part of Mississippi had the most outages with nearly 80,000 utility customers in the dark a week later. So, man, I don't know how you're getting by. Officials of the Northeast Mississippi Electric Power Association said they weren't sure when the lights would come back on because you got to clear all the trees and debris and stuff. And and then it didn't get warm enough, right? Now, I know in some of the South, you got above freezing, so the ice melted and stuff. You still got to fix the power lines. But up north here, man, I don't even know how you fix the stuff in this cold, but they're trying. And again, we pray for our power workers, our police, our fire, all the FEMA workers, everybody. But you know what? We must be doing a pretty good job because the national media isn't trashing Trump like this is his Katrina, right? That's how you can tell we're winning because they're not saying anything. But keep praying for those people out there and make sure that you help everyone you can help. Okay, do what you can personally. We take personal responsibility as Americans. That's fundamental to our way of life, okay? We solve our own problems. So this story I want to share with you because this kind of shocked me. Energy Department issues emergency power grid orders amid winter storm. And then I said, okay, this came across like right away, like on Monday. The agency on Sunday issued 2 separate orders for Texas and PJM interconnects to mitigate possible blackouts. So I did a story about Trump and the governors of all these states told PJM, you need to add more power and all that stuff. The Department of Energy issued emergency orders to the nation's largest electric grid operators, PJM Interconnection and the Texas grid operators. That allows the deployment of backup generation assets. Backup generation assets? What are those? The agency on Sunday issued 2 separate orders for Texas and PJM to mitigate possible blackouts. As the storm brings extreme cold and dangerous conditions to the Mid-Atlantic, maintaining affordable, reliable, and secure power in the PJM region is not negotiable, Secretary of State Chris Wright said in a statement. The previous administration's energy subtraction policies weakened the grid, leaving Americans more vulnerable during events like this winter storm. In another statement, Wright said that his office will continue taking action to ensure, now get this, that 35 gigawatts of untapped backup generation that exists across the country can be deployed as needed during Winter Storm Fern and in the future. What? 35 gigawatts of untapped backup generation exists? That's news to me. I don't know if you knew about it. That's 10% of our daily usage. Now, I'm pleased as punch that we've got a reserve. It kind of sounds to me like, the oil reserves that Biden depleted, where we have oil stored in underground caverns in case of war. Well, this is a good idea, and I'm sure happy to see that. And boy, I think we're going to see more of it. So this brought me to a story that I posted on our website that I want you guys to share because it's about energy and it's about the politics in our country. Because as I showed you, and as Bill O'Reilly screamed at you, there's international interference in everything in the United States. Because we have a free press, because we have freedom of speech, they can manipulate, and they do. Okay? So I posted this story because in my circles, in the Tea Party circles, first, AI data centers were evil because they were going to crash our grid and they were raising prices for you and I in homes. And prices are definitely up. But that's mostly because of what Biden did when they killed coal plants and they wouldn't let nuclear develop and all that. That's kind of an after effect. The data centers haven't really been built yet, okay? But what did Trump do? He said, no. If you're going to build a data center, you got to build your own generation. You got to put in a gas-powered, energy generator next to your data center. We're not going to let you pass this on to the consumers. I did that story 2 weeks ago. That's what Trump did. So it's really not as big of a story as it's being out to made. But here's the next story that people started saying, oh, is data center water usage really an issue? So I started hearing in our conservative groups all these stories about, data centers use so much water. It's going to, our water wells are going to go, empty. It's going to be horrible. And there's all these stories, and people are having town halls saying, we don't want a data center here because of water. You got to read this story. You got to go. I'm not going to go into much detail because you got to read it because it's chapter and verse. Literally, our enemies, the same people, the climate commies who brought you the anti-fossil fuel stuff. We fought this. I've talked to you guys, and if you look at the We the People Convention info, you'll see that our organization saved fracking in this nation and gave us the boom we have when the climate communists were trying to demonize it with lies about your water and your faucet starting on fire and poisoning all the wells. They were doing it to stop us as a military effort so they wouldn't have to meet our exceptional developments like fracking, right? The climate commies did the same thing, fracking. This whole thing about the water issue, it's all being paid for, just like the riots in Minneapolis and Los Angeles, by the communist Chinese and other Marxist groups that want to bring down our country. Because you know what? If they can stop us from building data centers, they got a better chance of beating us on AI. And I know more than anybody. No, that's not fair. I know more than most how much danger there was with AI, but I also know how much opportunity there is with AI. And I know we have to win that fight, okay? We have to manage it. We have to regulate it. But stopping data centers helps our enemies and hurts America. You don't believe me? Go read this article. And then write to me if you disagree with what they say in this article. Because it's false. All the data centers in the United States use 3% of the water that we use on golf courses, that we spray on golf courses. And you're going to shut down AI because of that? No, we're not. No, we're not. You're going to share that article with people who say those things to you, that we should shut down data centers because they're using up all our water, and you're going to prove them wrong. Okay? And again, I watch this podcast called Moonshots, and I urge you to watch it too. It's the best podcast about AI. Moonshots, okay? Peter Diamandis. They do like 2 a week, and it'll blow your mind. But they talked this past week about how if we would not have let people with an agenda kill nuclear energy in our country, how much better off we would be today. You remember the China syndrome with Jane Fonda, right? The 3 Mile Island where no one died. No one died at 3 Mile Island. We shut down our nuclear. They were talking in the 50s that with nuclear power, electricity would be so cheap that when we built houses in the 60s, they didn't have good insulation, and they had windows that aren't like the ones we have today with the gas in between the glass. They had just regular pane windows because it wouldn't matter. You'd be so cheap to heat your house. And we killed it. And we're just now trying to bring it back because our enemies are doing it. They're using nuclear when we did it to ourselves. Lessons, it's all connected. Minneapolis, China funding that. The data centers, China funding the negative stories about that, and us trying to find the truth. It's terrible. So let me close this half of the podcast with a really, really important story that you and I have been hoping for and praying for 15 years, well, at least since 2020, and that's about election integrity. And this week, the FBI executed search warrants at the Fulton County Elections Office. The raid comes after the DOJ filed suit last month to obtain the 2020 voting records. And the FBI and Tulsi Gabbard was there. And the left freaked out. They unloaded boxes and boxes of the actual fraudulent ballots from 2020. The jig is up. We're going to prove that Trump won the presidency in 2020 because he won Georgia. This is going to be monumental. And you can tell how freaked out the left is because what did they do? I saw posts on X on the left saying, the FBI took these documents out of our possession where we've been protecting them, right? You've been hiding them. This guy, this literal elected official in Georgia, in Fulton County, said, because they're going to alter them to try to prove Donald Trump won. The left always accuses you of what they did, okay? That's what they're going to claim. We're going to prove that they stole the election, okay? And this story was on X. This video was out here from back in 2020. Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger on November 4th, 2020, admitted Trump won the state of Georgia in that election and it was impossible for Biden to regain the lead. In this video, he said we have about 2% of votes left to go, and as you can see where we are right now, it will not change the outcome. And there's a picture, okay? Trump was leading 50.5% to 48.3% over Biden, and he said the only problem is, and he said they can't overcome it. Even if 100% of the votes went to Biden, it won't change the outcome. They cut his feed. The network, NBC, cut his feed and then said the only problem is that remaining 2%, are all Democratic counties, so he could still win. And then they had the famous water break. oh, we have a water line break. Everyone's got to get out of the election center. Yeah, all you people, observers, you got to go. We're going to stop counting. And then the video shows they kept counting, and they brought in fake ballots. The FBI now has the fake ballots in their possession. This is just the beginning, kids. This is just the beginning. Great day for America. Thank you to the voter GA, the patriots who spent 5 years fighting, being threatened, called names, spending their own money, working to keep these ballots from being destroyed, from making this day happen. Bannon had them on and just celebrated them, and they were so happy, these patriots. So our organization, we made a donation to them because they said they still need some money. So we went, the We the People Convention went and made a donation to Voter GA in your name, because that's what makes this country survive when other countries can't. It's you and I, we the people, fighting against all odds for what is right, for justice, for the truth. That's all we want. That's all we want is the truth. So I want to end on that note, because what a happy, happy event that was. And we'll certainly have way more about that in the podcasts to come as that starts to break and we see what the FBI does with those records. So I'm going to take a break now. Just catch my breath. You can take a break, get another cup of coffee, whatever. You've been watching the We the People Convention Weekly News and Opinion podcast. My name is Tom Zalostowski, and we'll be back after these short announcements. The We the People Convention News and Opinion radio program is paid for by donors like you. You can donate to the We the People Convention and support our cause by going to wethepeopleconvention.org or by sending your check in any amount to We the People Convention, P.O. Box 6211, Akron, Ohio, 44312. When you're playing a video, including our podcast, you'll see this little cloud button. And if you click it, it'll actually download the video to your hard disk. And this works on our podcast page as well. If you're playing our podcast, and it's going to be loud, so I won't play it for much, but there's our podcast playing, and you can see this little, download button. Okay. The other thing you got to notice on our podcast page is that there's a link here where you can send me a message about this podcast. Hey, it was great. Hey, I didn't like it. Something was wrong, or here's a correction, that kind of thing. You can use that link. And then these are the stories that I covered in this particular podcast. And you'll see there's links that go to the stories, to the articles that I used in reporting on that. So you can click on that. You'll also see that you can sign up for our emails and text messages, but you can also watch our podcast on Roku TV and on Amazon Fire TV. And these are the instructions for doing that. So this is all on our podcast page, right on the front page where the yellow button was. So if you click there, this is our podcast page. These are the instructions for watching on Roku TV or Amazon Fire. And I watch our podcast on TV. It just feels more comfortable. So you can do that. We're also on Rumble. If you go to Rumble, you should join Rumble. And it's Tom Z at WTPC. You'll see our podcast there. So you can get us a lot of different ways, including on Apple iTunes. And then this is an audio version of our podcast. If you click here, it'll just play the audio of the podcast. It will not, show you the video. So people can, listen to that while they're jogging or, working out, working in the yard, or just relaxing and just want to listen to the audio and not watch the video. And again, this is available on phone, on your iPad, on your laptop, on your computer, any way you want. And you can share, this, whatever you see. If you're on a page that you really like, and you see an article that you think, geez, I've got to share this article, with someone in my family. You can send them an email by clicking on the little envelope. You can post it on Parler or MeWe. If you click on this, you get all kinds of options, where you can put it on Twitter or Facebook, whatever, which we don't support, but you can do whatever you want. So we ask that you share what you see on our We the People Convention site. and that you get more people to look at it, because that's the whole idea here, to help educate people, inform them. And then, as I said before, Link, we're not just about talk, we're about action. And in my podcast every week, which is published every Saturday, so if the new podcast usually comes out every Saturday, and in that podcast, I will ask you to do certain things that will help protect and defend your individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. So that's the We the People Convention website. Come back often, use it to be informed, and share it with others. Thanks a lot. All right. And we're back for the second half of the podcast, and I'm glad you're with us. We appreciate everyone who donates to the podcast, but we also appreciate everyone who shares the podcast, and we appreciate everyone that follows us on social media. And we appreciate those of you who take the actions that we've asked you to do, like sharing the video of Bill O'Reilly, right? And calling the governor of Oklahoma and, giving him some education, okay? Now, I said when we went to the break, that we're about the truth, and we are about the truth, and it is up to you to hold me accountable, okay? I work really hard. We work really hard to make sure what we give you is factual. And it's really important, because I cannot lie to you. You cannot lie to your spouse. I don't lie to Nan. We don't lie to my kids. I don't lie to anybody. That's an important American characteristic. We can handle the truth, okay? So I need to tell you the truth. When I don't, it's certainly, I never that I know have told you a truth intentionally, a lie intentionally, but I apparently, in quoting President Trump last week, I said something that wasn't true. And this is a problem we have with President Trump. I mean, there's many things he says, and, he exaggerates, and I'm okay with that. But I'm not okay with this. I told you, at Davos, President Trump said that you're buying all these windmills from China, and they don't have any windmills. That was in the Davos speech, which I posted on our website. Well, our friend Ron, who's a big follower and is very good about sending articles and things, he said, I heard on the broadcast today when a friend of mine on Facebook challenged me and said Trump got it wrong about the windmills in China. And he said, so I did AI research, and China has tons of windmills. They got more than the United States. And they get like 15% of their energy from windmills, and we get about the same. And so President Trump was wrong, and I wanted to correct that. That was a miss. I don't know why President Trump said that, because China absolutely uses wind energy. They don't just sell it to us. So want to make that correction. A couple other housekeeping things. We used to have on our website, on our podcast page at WeThePeopleConvention.org, when you go there, you've got this video, you've got our chapters player, which usually doesn't come out until Sunday, where you can skip through all the stories and just go right to the one that you want to hear about, okay? Then below that, we've got every story listed with the time of it in the video, but those story names are links to the actual articles or videos of the story, okay? And then below that, we say this week's action items, things you should do. And then below that, we used to keep a running link to the podcast links from previous podcasts. Last week, I decided I can't do that anymore. It just takes too much time. So the links are there this week, but next week, they'll be gone. And there will be no way for you to get them again. All right? Some people used it. Very few of you. Sorry, you're not going to be happy, but it's just not worth the time and effort it takes for us to do that. So I wanted to let you know that changed. Okay, so on to international news, because it's just sad that our country, that our media, they let us down. There are major things happening in the globe, and literally today, the United States could bomb Iran. I'll get to that in a minute. Literally, while you're watching this podcast, we could kill the Ayatollah. That's big news, okay? You're not getting any of that. You're talking about Don Lemon. You're talking about, Lady Gaga's in Australia and says ICE is bad. Shut up. That's not news, is it? You can't get news except from places like this. And we're glad you're here because we're going to give you the news because this is really big news. Okay? Big shakeup in China. Chinese excerpts raise alarms as Xi's sweeping military purge. What do we mean? Experts say the scope of the apparent shakeup points to mounting instability under Xi Jinping with potential implications for Taiwan tensions. China's sudden removal of military leaders, including allegations that their top general leaked nuclear codes to the United States, is raising new questions about the internal turmoil inside the Chinese Communist Party and the readiness of the People's Liberation Army. Instability in a nuclear-armed, biggest military on the planet is not a good thing for anyone. And things went really off the rails, and I'm going to try to explain what I think is the reason why, but listen to this from Gordon Chang. Whoa.
Yeah, I think that General Zhang Yashao, who was the #1 uniformed officer, first vice chairman of the Communist Party Central Military Commission, was Xi Jinping's adversary in the military. And I think Zhang was actually taking out Xi Jinping's loyalists in the military, which he did last year. What we do know, and there's a lot we don't, but what we do know is that the Communist Party right now is in turmoil, and the military is not that ready because the senior leadership has been annihilated, as someone said. I don't actually think that Zhang Yashao passed nuclear weapons secrets to the U.S., but I think that clearly right now we are in a state of turmoil in China, and anything can happen.
Wow. Okay. Anything can happen. That's not good. We don't like uncertainty like that. Okay. And so this purge, the unsettling implications of Xi's military purge, why his impatience with Chinese commanders should worry U.S. policymakers. Chinese President Xi Jinping has ordered the total annihilation, which Chang referred to, of his high command. On January 21st, the Ministry of Defense announced that China's top uniformed officer, General Zhang Ji, and his military chief of staff, General Liu Zhilini, have been investigated for serious violations of party discipline and law, usual regime code for corruption. The military's terse announcement masked the biggest political earthquake to hit the top brass of the People's Liberation Army since the 1989 Tiananmen Square crackdown. It also marked the zenith of Xi's latest officer purge, which has touched every corner of the PLA, People's Liberation Army, and claimed all but one top officer over the last few years. Wow. Okay. So what happened? How did this? What's going on? Well, I think it's tied to Venezuela. China ready for war to defend its Latin American infiltration after Maduro capture. Picked up on this article. Video shows Chinese special forces conducting a so-called decapitation drill only days after the U.S. forces arrested Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro. It was Beijing's message to Washington that it can do the same thing against Taiwan. Okay? So that we do it to Maduro, they go, we can do the same thing in Taiwan. The successful U.S. raid on Venezuela has struck a major blow to China's Latin American strategy, according to Gordon Chang. China has used Venezuela as its beachhead, and it's a very important country for China. China used Venezuela not only as a place to get cheap oil, but it's also a place very much for military penetration into our hemisphere. China also is Venezuela's mineral sector, is in their mineral sector, working with corporations as well. It's also deeply embedded in the telecommunications sectors, in the rail sector, retail sector, and other places. China has projects all over Latin America, from ports to rail, factories, mines, and hydroelectric plants. However, in Venezuela, it has been building infrastructure that can be used for war against the United States. Okay? So I think what happened here is when Trump and Hegseth and General Raisin Kane took out Maduro, what did they do? They defeated the Chinese military weaponry. All the Chinese stuff that was supposed to be so great that they've got failed miserably. And so what did Xi do? All these generals who were lying to them, saying we're ready for war, they're gone. They got purged. I think that means they are much less likely to invade Taiwan. Because you know what? They really aren't as good as they want to think they are. Venezuela showed it. And so then we got another good story about this whole war. Again, this whole podcast, throughout our history, I've been telling you that we are at war with Communist China. They're at war with us, and we act like we're not at war with them. It is only until this time, when Donald Trump was reelected by you and I, that we have finally been fighting China in this war, okay? And this is what you're seeing. And it's serious stuff. And you're seeing how bad it really was. And so we've talked about Venezuela and how it refers to Iceland or Greenland and Iran and stuff. We're going to talk about that in a second. But this is where the war is being fought. This is World War III. We're in it. Okay? So we got some good news, because the first thing, you may not remember, a year ago, right now, one of the first things Trump did when he got sworn in is send Marco Rubio to Panama to tell the Chinese that they can't have both ends of the Panama Canal controlled by companies they own. Okay? And whoa, I was like, there you go. Now we're getting serious. So Hong Kong-based CK Hutchins Holding concession to operate ports to Panama Canal has been ruled unconstitutional. Panama's Supreme Court ruled late on January 29th, this week, that it was unconstitutional for the company, which has complex ties to the Chinese Communist Party, to operate two ports at either end of the Panama Canal. These laws and acts under challenge relate to the concession contract between the State of Panama Port Authority and these companies. They did an illegal deal to keep us from throwing them out, and the Panama Supreme Court just agreed with us. And Secretary of State Marco Rubio said on X that the United States was encouraged by Panama's Supreme Court ruling that port concessions like the Chinese had were unconstitutional and invalid. Yeah, we're at war with China finally. Thank God, because they want to kill us. And they're trying in Minneapolis, in LA, in our country. They are in our country. They are funding the whole thing. And you now know that because Bill O'Reilly told you that, and we've proven it, okay? So I mentioned Iran. What does Iran have to do with China? Why a waning Iran regime is a major setback for China. Iran is key for Beijing to exert influence in the Middle East and for China to circumvent U.S. sanctions and counter the dollar system. Okay, so this is the thing where they're trying to attack us by weakening the U.S. dollar with the BRICS effort for these other countries to trade, do commerce in not U.S. dollars. The Iranian regime appears more fragile than ever. What began as an economic protest by business owners in Tehran quickly escalated into a nationwide anti-regime effort by the end of last year. On January 17th, President Trump called for new leadership in Iran after the Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei acknowledged that several thousand protesters have been killed. That may be as many as 36,000 now is what they're talking about. And Trump, was upset, with the deaths. Trump has repeatedly warned Iran that the execution of protesters would trigger U.S. military action, and I think it's probably imminent. But the question is, what no matter what happens next, because it looks like the Republicans are not going to. No matter what happens next, there is no scenario in which the Islamic Republic survives this year, 2026, with its power intact. A source in China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs told the Epoch Times that Beijing has been assessing detailed evacuation plans for Chinese diplomats and managers of state-owned enterprises operating in Iran. The prospect of Tehran seeking accommodation with Washington threatens to expose China to new constraints on its global ambitions, experts say, and the Iranian oil is not the central issue. While the oil trade offers an entry point, the core value of the Sino-Iranian relationship to Beijing lies elsewhere. Iran allows Beijing to position itself as a balancing power in the Middle East, securing influence in a regional market critical for U.S.-China artificial intelligence race and advancing its de-dollarization agenda. All the above hinges on Iran's anti-American political orientation, which is in question as the Islamic Republic may fail. See how this all plays out? It's global. It's 4D chess. Whether it's Iceland, Iran, Venezuela, Taiwan, you can't affect one without the other. That's what you got to see. Yeah, no one's talking like this. You don't get this on any Fox News or anybody like that. They're not putting these together. They're not helping Americans understand that we're in World War III and that attacking Iran and killing the Ayatollah ain't just because Trump is mad because they said bad things about him. Okay? Serious stuff. So, here's the deal. Report. U.S. tells Middle East. Let's see here. I have the story I was going to run says, Iran's doomsday clock is so close to midnight, the ball is dropping. And then this morning, this story came out. Reports, U.S. tells Middle East allies to prepare for virtual certainty Iran strike. Only question is when it's going to happen. Senior U.S. military officials warned key Middle East allies on Friday to prepare for a possible strike on Iran, as multiple reports said Washington and Jerusalem now view military action as decided, with one source saying the only remaining question is timing, not whether an attack will occur. According to an exclusive report published by Drop Site News, senior U.S. military officials informed the leaders of U.S. key allies in the Middle East that President Donald Trump could authorize strikes on Iran as early as this weekend, and the ally was told operations could begin as soon as Sunday if Washington moves forward. The report said U.S. war planners are considering attacks not only on Iran's nuclear, ballistic missile, and conventional military infrastructure, but also strikes aimed at senior leadership, particularly the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, as part of a broader effort to weaken and collapse the regime. The former senior U.S. intelligence officer cited by the outlet said the thinking inside the Trump administration is that a successful strike on Iran's leadership could be followed by Iranians returning to the streets, potentially accelerating the overthrow of the Islamic Republic. I think it's going to happen. I mean, I don't know how you feel about it. We all voted for President Trump because he's going to end wars, but we now find ourselves in wars. But they're not the kind of wars like we had with Halliburton and the Bushes and let's go and spend trillions of dollars in Afghanistan nation building. Okay, at least Venezuela was a better way of doing things, and the first Iran attack was, I don't know, but wow, that's serious stuff. And the MO, think about it, everything Trump has done is always on a weekend, and there was even something about 47. Trump's the 47th president, and Sunday there's something with 47. I read an article. I can't remember what's going on, but I would not be surprised. I would put it at 80%. Now, I think that the overthrow of the Iranian Ayatollahs would be a good thing for the world. I do think that. I don't know if that's our place as America to do that. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Write to me at info@wethepeopleconvention.org and tell me what you think. These are trying times, big decisions, and pray for President Trump, pray for his team, for Hegseth, for General Kane, pray for our men and women, our sons and daughters who are on those aircraft carriers, who are flying those jets, those tankers, right? Pray. Today, right now, say a prayer. It's important. And then the other big international story before we get on to, domestic stuff again, Russia, Ukraine. War could reach 2 million casualties by spring. President Trump has done everything he can to stop the killing. It's not stopping because Europe doesn't want to stop it. That's why it's not stopping. Okay? It's just that simple. The Russia-Ukraine war could reach 2 million overall casualties by this spring. Since Russia's full-scale invasion began in February 2022, nearly 1.2 million Russian troops have been killed, wounded, or gone missing, while Ukraine casualties are estimated at between 500 and 600,000. Now, again, those numbers, you say, wow, there's more Russians being killed, but their population size, the percentage of Ukrainians killed per population is way higher. It's unsustainable. It's devastating. Casualties combined now stand at roughly 1.8 million. The study's estimate Russia's facilities alone at as many as 325,000, a death toll unmatched by any major power in a single conflict since World War II. Ukrainian troop deaths are estimated between 100 and 140,000, an enormous loss for a country with a far smaller population and military. Despite claims by Russian President Vladimir Putin that its forces are advancing with confidence, the data shows Russia is paying an extraordinary price in blood for minimal territory gain. Now get this. Since 2024, Russian forces have captured less than 1.5% of Ukraine's territory, often advancing only a few dozen meters per day in key offenses. They're stalled. It's World War II stuff. What are we doing? What is the point of this madness? Now, Witkoff and those guys were in Moscow, and they at Davos, they had joint meetings where, for the first time, the Russians and the Ukrainians were at the table. And so we're going to get this fixed at some point. It's going to stop at some point. But boy, sooner's a hell of a lot better than later when every day people are being maimed and killed. It's terrible. Okay, so now on to a whole host of domestic stories, and I'll go through these pretty quickly because you can go on the website and read them. Okay, but there are things that I need to bring to your attention because they affect all of us. Okay, and it's really important. So let me get going on that. FCC Chief Brendan Carr moves to curb fraud as agency programs subsidize phone and internet service for 116,000 dead people. Okay? FCC Commissioner Brendan Carr announced Tuesday the agency will vote next month on proposals to remove fraud from the Lifeline program. They're going to vote on it, okay, in a month, which provides taxpayer dollars to pay for phone and internet services for more than 116,000 dead people. Carr's announcements follow a report by the Federal Communications Commission of the Office of Inspector General, which found startling levels of fraud in the program. This is where you pay, if you look on your phone bill, even your cell phone bill, there's a thing called the Universal Service Fund. And this is a thing that was supposed to help pay for rural long-distance service back when long distance was a thing, okay? And you all get taxed to give this money, and now we're giving it to people who are dead and the people who are stealing it, okay? The new Inspector General advisory found that providers took nearly $5 million in federal dollars to provide phone and internet services to over 160,000 dead people in 3 states. Gavin Newsom's California was by far the worst offender of these opt-out states. On Governor Newsom's watch, California allowed 94,000 dead people to be used to obtain federal dollars for phone and internet service. And we got to stop it. This is the thing about the fraud, right? So that's bad. This is worse. Christopher Rufo, what a great, guy, independent journalist, but now he's working with the Blaze. Christopher Rufo drops bombshell report on $26 billion SBA program that discriminates against white men. White men. Last week, Blaze TV host and investigative journalist Christopher Rufo, alongside Manhattan Institute Director of Research Judge Glock, published a report titled "No White Men Need Apply." Despite functioning under current Trump administration, Rufo and Glock discovered that the program has been awarding government contracts based on race, gender, and social disadvantage, a stark contradiction to the administration's vow to abolish DEI. The Small Business Administration 8A program, Rufo says, is a $26 billion slush fund for government contracts that are available to every identity group except one: white men. We blew the whistle on this and made the case that this was a corrupt program and totally in violation of the president's stated DEI policies. The reaction from the SBA and the White House was surprisingly humble. I got a call from the SBA Administrator Kelly Loeffler. I got a call from a number of people at the White House, some of whom were a bit annoyed that we had brought the scandal to public attention, but all of whom recognized, yep, we dropped the ball on this. It's totally unjust. We're going to take action. And they clearly meant it, because just 2 days after their conversation, Kelly Loeffler put it on post. Today, the Trump SBA issued clear guidance to all employees. This agency will not deny any small business owner admission to the 8A program simply because they are white, or show preferential treatment to any business owner simply because they are a minority. Okay? So, yay, but why does it take Christopher Rufo to find out, right? No one's watching the damn store. And I told you that the American people are more outraged about the Somali fraud than the ICE protests, because It affects us directly. It's your and my money. It's our pocketbook, right? Okay? But here's the good news. Somebody now is going to be looking out for the fraud. Trump names Colin McDonald as head of new fraud division at the Justice Department. Here. Why did we need this? Why wasn't any of our elected officials? Why weren't all these congressional committees? Why weren't the inspector generals in every one of these frickin' agencies doing this? I don't know the answer to that. I just know that Trump saw a problem, fixed problem, let's go. President Donald Trump announced a head for the new National Fraud Enforcement Division of the Justice Department on January 28th. I am pleased to nominate Colin McDonald to serve as the first ever Assistant Attorney General for National Fraud Enforcement, a new division of the Department of Justice, which I created to catch and stop fraudsters that have been stealing from the American people. Trump added that the fraud schemes recently uncovered in Minnesota and California were found to have stolen hundreds of billions of tax dollars. Trump commended McDonald for successfully delivering justice in some of the most difficult and high-stakes cases. Congratulations, Collins. Stop the scam. Now, he has to be confirmed by the Senate, but I think that's going to go pretty quickly because they all see they're exposed, right? They're the ones that need him to cover their butts. That's, I guess, the way I'm putting it. Okay? So while Trump is naming things, he made a really big and, to me, surprising appointment yesterday. Kevin Warsh, Trump nominated him to head the Federal Reserve. Kevin Warsh, I did not think it would be this guy, and Steve Bannon was shocked, and some of the people he had on were shocked about this. But it looks like it's an excellent choice. President Donald Trump on January 3rd nominated Kevin Warsh to lead the Federal Reserve and an increasingly divided Federal Open Market Committee once Chairman Powell's term ends in May. Walsh serves as the Fed's Board of Governors for 5 years from 26 to 2011, including during the U.S. financial crisis. During that time, he was seen as a bridge to Wall Street and pegged as a hawk, meaning he favored keeping rates high to curb inflation. However, Walsh has recently appeared to be more dovish, siding with the president in his calls for further easing of federal benchmarks, the federal fund rate. Walsh has been critical of the Fed intervening in the markets for a quantitative easing perspective over the last few years, and basically the role of the Fed in general. Said SoFi head of investment strategy Liz Thomas. There's an expectation that he's going to drive some reform as far as the whole Fed role is in the markets. He's got to. They're completely out of control. They are not in touch with reality. As Larry Kudlow says, they're wrong all the time. We've got to fix this. Growth in GDP does not drive inflation. It doesn't happen. That's what just happened this year. We're growing the GDP. It was 4% in the last quarter of the year. We're talking 6% this year possibly. And the old Fed would raise interest rates to stop it. We don't want to stop it. We want it to go. So this guy seems to be, a much better choice. I hope so. Because remember, Trump picked Powell, and that didn't turn out too good. Hopefully he got this one right. But he beat out other frontrunners for the position, including the director of economics, National Kevin Hassett, who I thought would get it. And Trump, remember that Trump had a meeting and he was talking about it, and Kevin Hassett was there. He said, yeah, Kevin deserves this job, but I need him in the White House. I need him doing what he's doing for the National Economic Council. And Fed former Governor Christopher Waller, who's a BlackRock executive named Rick Ryder. He didn't pick them. He picked this guy. And most people were surprised because it's a better pick than they thought Trump would make. They thought Trump would pick someone who would just be loyal to him, and he picked a guy that has all kinds of respect and is really good at his job. And the market showed it, and a bunch of other things happened. And one thing that happened is this, and so many of you guys, this was a big deal. Do I not have the story? I guess I forgot to add the story, so I'll read it to you. Okay, here's the story. Silver plunges 30% in worst day since 1980. Gold tumbles as worst pick eases federal independence fears. This is a bad day for people who bought precious metals. Gold and silver have been going up and up and up because everything was a mess. And this one pick, wow. Gold and silver prices plunged Friday as President Trump's nomination for the next chair of the Federal Reserve, Kevin Warsh, appeared to relieve concerns about the central bank's independence and sent the dollar soaring. Spot silver was down 28% at 83.45 an ounce, trading near its low of the day. Silver futures went down 31% to 78.53, marking its worst day since March of 1980. Meanwhile, spot gold said 9% to trade at $4,895 an ounce. Gold futures dropped 11% after the market closed to $4,745. Gold was at $5,500 this week. The sharp moves down were initially triggered by reports of Warsh's nomination. However, they gained steam in the afternoon. U.S. trading was investors who piled into the metal stocks a race to book profits. So that was a big ramification, and maybe this is a good thing for the future of the dollar. And I don't know what effect it'll have on cryptocurrencies, but it's something to take note of, okay? Something to take note of. So this was an interesting story, and then the repercussions were even more interesting. Treasury cancels Booz Allen contracts after employee leaked Trump tax records. The stock falls, okay? I'm getting all my stuff out of whack here. Okay, let me move on to that story. I'm sorry, getting a little discombobulated. Anyway, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent on Monday said he has canceled all Treasury Department contracts with the consulting firm Booz Allen Hamilton, whose employee leaked the tax records of President Donald Trump and billionaires Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk to media outlets. Booz Hamilton's stock dropped by more than 10% on the heels of the Treasury Department's announcement. The department said it currently had 31 separate contracts with Booz Allen Hamilton, totaling $4.8 million in annual spending and $20 million in total obligations. President Trump has entrusted his cabinet to root out waste, fraud, and abuse, and canceling these contracts is an essential step to increasing Americans' trust in government, Bessent said in a statement. Wow. How's that for a punch in the gut? Okay? So then, what happens next? The Trump family sues the IRS for $10 billion. This is, I don't like this. The president argued in the lawsuit that the agencies failed to prevent a former contractor from leaking his tax return for nearly a decade ago to news outlets. President Donald Trump is suing the IRS and the Treasury Department for $10 billion, alleging they failed to take necessary steps to prevent the leak. The lawsuit filed Thursday at a federal court in Miami says Trump is suing in his personal capacity, not as president. The other plaintiffs include two sons, Trump's sons Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump, and the Trump organizations. Defendants have caused plaintiffs reputational and financial harm, public embarrassment, unfair tarnishing their business reputation, portraying them in a false light, and negatively affected President Trump and the other plaintiffs' public standing. The Treasury Department did not immediately respond to his request. What do you think of that? Because that's our money. We didn't hurt President Trump. Now again, let's be upfront. As you know, if you've watched this a long time, and if you're new, I personally, Tom Zawistowski, the We the People Convention, our Tea Party group, Portage County Tea Party, the Ohio Liberty Coalition, I was the lead plaintiff in the lawsuits defending us against the IRS when President Barack Obama sicked them on us to steal the 2012 election. We spent years in court, 6 years in court, and won $3.2 million suing the federal government for taking our rights illegally by the attacks by the IRS. We did not feel comfortable about that money coming to us from us. Okay, so I had my problems then, but that's just the way it works. So now, I mean, President Trump, $10 billion? We're going to take $10 billion from our treasury when we're deficit spending, when we're underwater, and it's going to go to the Trump organization? Aren't we selling enough Trump watches and Trump sneakers and everything else? Trump, how about the Trump crypto? How about what's happened with Truth Social? I'm confused by this. I mean, I wish he would do the thing he's done before and say, if we win the suit, we're going to put the money against the debt, or we're going to put it into Trump accounts for kids. Like I'll talk about at the end of the show, which is a story we got to talk a lot about. This huge story. Okay. So again, write to me, info@wethepeopleconvention.org. Tell me what you think about this, because it's kind of unsettling for me. I don't know. I just didn't like it. I didn't like it. Okay. Another story that I didn't like was this Mangione guy. Okay. This is disgusting to me. The guy that killed the healthcare executive, they just ruled that he can't get the death penalty. And it's just another example of how we don't have real law. How can this be? Luigi Mangione will not face the death penalty for allegedly killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson in December 2024. A federal district judge ruled Friday, dealing a blow to the U.S. prosecutors who were adamant about pushing the ultimate sentence. U.S. District Judge Margaret Garnett dismissed the murder charge in his federal indictment, which is the only count and the only case that he brought against him that could have been carried a possible death sentence. He still faces 2 counts of stalking, which carry a maximum possible sentence of life imprisonment. So get this. He shot the guy in the back, premeditated. He has a diary that says he did it because of the healthcare industry and he was going to stalk this guy and kill him. And she says, we're not going to try him for the murder. We're going to try him for stalking. Garnett based her decision on the interpretation of the law, which requires that killing be committed during another crime of violence. Prosecutors alleged the other crime of violence were represented by 2 stalking charges, but she said that's not the case. Okay? It's disgusting. This person, and so he's also being tried in New York State. She's a federal judge. New York State doesn't have the death penalty. This guy is 27 years old, and the maximum penalty he might get is 25 years in prison. And that'll be in New York State. And then, you know what's going to happen? He's going to get out for good behavior. He killed a husband and a father of 2 in cold blood. And we call this justice? Wow. That's disgusting. There's just no other way to put it. It's just disgusting. Okay? So let me move on to some, better news, okay? Because I'm just, the bad news is enough. I don't want to do any more bad news, okay? So there is lots of good things going on. New Missouri, this is new news, just came out. Missouri sues Census Bureau to end counting of illegal aliens and requests a 2020 recount. Whoa, that is just huge, okay? And again, I wonder if this is being coordinated. I wonder if the Trump inside people were looking for someone to do this so we could get this to the Supreme Court. Because we want the Census Bureau to not be able to count illegals. And they used to not do that. But when Trump was president, they did it anyway. And then they lied about the census and admitted it. After Trump was illegally thrown out of office in 2020's election, in 2021, the Census Bureau said, oh, we made some mistakes. We misappropriated. All these red states and all these blue states got more members of Congress. It was egregious. It was intentional. Those people should be in prison. Missouri Attorney General Catherine Hanaway announced Friday that the state, along with several individual plaintiffs, have filed suit against the U.S. Commerce Department and the Census Bureau, seeking to bring to an end to counting of illegal aliens in the census, as well as forcing a recount of the 2020 census and the 2021 apportionment. That's, how many congressmen do you have? That's what this lawsuit is about. In the press release, she gave these details. To defend our fundamental right to representation in government, Missouri Attorney General Catherine Hanaway filed the most significant election lawsuit in a generation. This first-in-a-nation suit was filed against the United States Department of Commerce and the Census Bureau, while allowing illegal aliens to commandeer the path of the White House and compromise our elections for unconstitutionally doing that. The state of Missouri and its voters will no longer ignore the ongoing denial of their rights to self-government and fair representation. United States citizens and lawful permanent residents have a right to representation, unlike illegal aliens and temporary visa holders. In America, the people, the members of the social compact, are the only legitimate source of government power. We are taking a stand against those who are cheating our system. The DOC and Census Bureau current policy of counting illegal aliens in the census tabulation is unjust, unlawful, and unconstitutional, and they're going to go to court. This baby is worth watching. This is what we need, because she's absolutely right. And this ties into the SAVE Act, where the Constitution says only citizens can vote in elections. That the SAVE Act we're trying to get passed because they let them get on the voter rolls. And you shouldn't even be able to do that. We're fighting the fights. These are important. They're long-term, but they're important. I was thrilled to see that. I was thrilled to see this story, too. Landmark Team's social media addiction trial against Meta, TikTok, and YouTube begins in California. Okay? So, get my things together here. Put these two right here. Okay. So this is a trial that a lot of people have been waiting for a long time for, and it's going to be a test case for what we've been talking about and you and I have been fighting for in our states and federally. And that is getting kids off of social media. Anyone under 16 years old should not be on social media. We've argued that out. Go to our website, just search on Dr. Haidt, H-A-I-D-T, okay, and you'll get all the videos and stuff like that. So here's this case about. Mark Zuckerberg, Meta, China's TikTok, and Google's YouTube are set to face their first courtroom trial this week over allegations that their platforms have contributed to a youth mental health crisis through addictive design features. Reuters reports the landmark bellwether trial taking place in California's Superior Court in Los Angeles County marks a significant turning point in the national debate surrounding youth screen time and social media usage. The case involves a 19-year-old California woman identified in court documents as KGM, who alleges she developed an addiction to these social media platforms as a young age due to their attention-grabbing design features, meaning it was intentional. She couldn't defend herself. According to the lawsuit, this addiction contributed to depression and suicidal thoughts. The trial represents the first time these technology giants will be required to defend them in courts over allegations of harm caused by their products. Matthew Bergman, the plaintiff's attorney, emphasized the significance of this legal scrutiny. He stated that the companies will face a level examination that does not exist when they testify before Congress. Hear, hear. The case is the first of several lawsuits expected to proceed to trial this year, all centered on what plaintiffs describe as social media addiction among children and teenagers. The jury will be tasked with determining whether the companies demonstrated negligence in providing products that harm KGM's mental health and whether her use of these platforms was a substantial factor in her depression when compared to other potential cases, including third-party content she viewed on the platforms or aspects of her offline life. So this will be interesting. Very sophisticated trial. Again, proving that, is not as easy as it might look. Okay, but I think the evidence will be there. I hope she wins, and I hope this begins to really push everybody to say, no, social media doesn't work for young kids. Get them off the screens. We've done numerous stories. I know most of you support me in this. I know some of you don't, but that's a good story for me, I think. This is another good story, really exciting to me. U.S. steel surpasses Japan's output boosted by Trump tariffs. Again, Trump tariffs. For the first time in more than a quarter century, the United States has muscled past Japan in steel production, a symbolic and economic milestone fueled by President Donald Trump's aggressive tariff regime and a surging appetite for steel for America's booming artificial intelligence build-outs. See, they're tied together. These data centers take steel to build. Now it's American steel. No small thing. U.S. crude steel output climbed 3% in 2025 to 82 million tons, according to the World Steel Association, vaulting U.S. into third place globally behind only China and India. It marked the first time since 1999 that American mills outproduced Japan, ending decades of relative decline and signaling a dramatic shift in the global steel landscape. The revival has Trump's fingerprints all over it. In March, his administration imposed an additional 25% tariff on imported steel and aluminum, then doubled down in June by lifting that levy to 50%. While foreign steel suddenly was far more expensive, the availability less certain, U.S. manufacturers ramped up output to meet rising domestic demand. Steel prices have surged as a result. Hot-rolled steel coils, a key input for manufacturing and construction, hit $983 per ton as of January 12th, the highest level since last May, and nearly double the global export price, according to Steel Benchmark. So prices are up, okay, because of the tariffs, but because of the demand, it's not scaring buyers away. Instead, tariffs have created a protected, high-margin market where U.S. steel can invest with confidence. U.S. domestic steel shipments rose 5% year-on-year in November. Data from the American Iron and Steel Institute show underscores the strength of the underlying demand. A major driver is the AI boom. Steel demand for data centers and power-generating facilities has surged as tech companies race to build the infrastructure needed to support artificial intelligence. So, good news. Trump again, seeing ahead, 4D chess, not just trying to get votes in Pittsburgh with U.S. Steel. He's trying to make America self-sufficient and not dependent on China and India, right? It's working. It's good. It's powerful. It was really good and powerful to see President Trump out on the campaign trail again this year. It's so funny. And really, it's why you watch this podcast, because it just got lost. Trump did a rally in Iowa, and with everything else going on, man, you could barely find it. It just zipped by. Boom. Trump visits Iowa to kick off the midterm election campaign. He said, we've got to win, and we do have to win. And he brought the same passion, that he brought, all of 2024, and he's going to act like it's 2024. President Trump rallied voters and touted his economic agenda in Iowa on Tuesday, as sources say the state is a key part of the team's strategy to help Republicans hold on to power in the House. The visit to the Des Moines area was the president's first campaign-style trip of 2026. Democrats are hopeful that they'll have the support to win back the House in November, while Republicans are scrambling to maintain control. Trump said at the rally, if we lose midterms, you'll lose so many of the things that we're talking about, so many of the assets that we're talking about, so many of the tax cuts that we're talking about, Trump said in a rally-like speech to supporters at the Horizon Event Center in Clive, Iowa. And it would lead to very bad things. We've got to win the midterms. I'm here because I love Iowa, but I'm here because we're starting the campaign to win the midterms, and we've got to win. So remember that. Always keep that in mind, because everything else goes by the wayside if we don't win. It's just that simple. This was also really exciting and surprising to me. We really need help. Trump plans to fast-track rebuild of fire-ravaged LA, brings victims relief. Trump's team has somehow discovered that there is some legal way for the federal government to declare a disaster and take over control of all the permitting for the homes that were burned to the ground in the Palisades in Los Angeles. Wow. If you want to watch somebody who's excited, go watch Adam Carolla's podcast, because he was nearly orgasmic over the fact that this is happening, because he'll explain to you none of this was going to happen. The commies in California were going to make sure the elites didn't get to build their beautiful houses back on those beautiful, scenic places in California. They were going to put low-income housing in there, right? Because for the revolution, you got to pretend you're for the people. And Trump said no. And then he appoints Lee Zeldin to run it. This is going to be odd. Now, he said, when he made the announcement, he said, I'm going to do this for them, and they'll probably still vote for Democrats. And everybody laughed. But I don't know. If they do the job that I know Trump always does, he's a builder, baby. He's going to make this beautiful. Someone said to me, he'll probably get him to change the name from Palisades to Trump Town. Okay? Who knows? He might. There'll probably be streets named for him, whatever. But people are stupid, and they're indoctrinated, and California is the worst. But boy, when you see what he does there, I think it's going to have an effect, folks. I think it's going to have an effect. And once we clean up the voter rolls in California and stuff, don't give up on California. I love all our California members. We have thousands of members in California. I love you guys. You fight such a hard fight. This is good. This is exciting. President Trump signed an executive order to speed up the rebuilding process after the Palisades and Eaton fires tore through the area. The New York reported on Tuesday the fires burned down countless homes and left thousands of people with no place to go. 31 people died as a result of the fires. And Trump just said, I want to see if we can take over the city and state and just give the people their permits they want to build. And apparently he can do it. He's going to do it. So I'm like, Wow, that is awesome. That is just awesome that he's going to do that. Okay? So now I'm going to wrap up our story, our podcast today, with the Trump accounts. Folks, I know, many of you watch this podcast are older. You don't have kids, so it doesn't matter if they're going to put $1,000 in a child's Trump account. You're missing the point. You're missing the point. I worked hard to post this story at WeThePeopleConvention.org, and I really want your commitment that you're going to go and look at the story, you're going to read it, and then you're going to click the share links and send it to everyone you know. This is not political. This is cultural. This is economic vitality for our kids, okay, and for our future. So let me just do a few highlights, and then I've got a real important paragraph that I want to read you that I think makes the point better than ever. A growing number of employees are jumping on the bandwagon for Trump accounts. Here's everything you need to know about opening one. Who are Trump accounts for? Trump accounts are for parents and guardians who want to save money for their kids' education or for them to start a business or make a down payment on a home after they turn age 18. Anyone with a kid 18 or younger, so think about that, 18 or younger, now it's not just for newborns, can start a new Trump account. The federal government will contribute $1,000 in seed money per account, but only for kids born January 1st, 2025 to December 31st, 2028. So it's an incentive for people to have babies, okay? The federal government, our tax dollars, will put $1,000 into this account. What do Trump accounts do? Parents, family members, and friends can contribute up to $5,000 total per year to a Trump account. Half of that can come from pre-tax income. Any contributions from the government or charities don't count towards the $5,000. So that's a good thing. The $1,000 that they're going to put in, you can still put in $5,000 more. Employers can contribute up to $25,000 per year for the kids of an employee or of an employee's dependent. That counts towards the $5,000 cap, but won't be considered taxable income. So instead of you getting $2,500 as an increase in your pay, your employer can put $2,500 in your kid's account, and it doesn't count as income for you. Wow. Employers can also let workers direct up to $2,500 of their pre-tax salaries to the Trump accounts. It's going to be very similar to a 401k match in the sense that this is just free money. Nathan Goldman, member of America's Accounting Association, said funds in the accounts can only be invested in low-income mutual funds or exchange-traded funds, also known as ETFs, which most consist of U.S. stocks and bonds. So you're not buying stocks, which are speculative. You're basically buying the market. You're buying these ETFs and exchange-traded funds so that the kids over the 18 years, the market will go up and down, but overall it'll go up, okay, as it historically has. Let's see. The website, trumpaccounts.gov. That's where you need to go. Trumpaccounts.gov. It's a really cool website. They did a great job. Estimates that investing $250 per year in an account opened at birth will yield $20,700 by the time the youth is 18. So just putting $250 per year in the account, which Michael Dell and his wife have said they're going to do for every 10 million kids. His $6 billion investment is going to be like giving him $20,700. Annual investments of $5,000 are estimated to yield $303,000 by age 18. So if you keep putting money in and it's $5,000 a year, which most people won't be able to do, it's going to be worth $300,000. It's an annuity for your kid. Funds can't be withdrawn under the beneficiary until they turn 18, though there are penalties if money goes toward expenses other than ones for which the accounts were designed. Okay? So now here's the paragraph I want to read to you that's important. In contrast to other government social spending, this program fosters thrift, savings, and self-sufficiency. The way it encourages young folks to gain financial literacy promises a life-changing for coming generations. That's no doubt why the rapper Minja will add more starter savings for kids of her fans, and why others across the private sector, including Ray Dalio and Brad Gessner and other lists of major companies, are adding to their own donations, with Michael and Susan Dell giving over $6 billion. Unlike giveaways favored by the left, which drive up the national debt and spike inflation, when you give a COVID check for $2,000 to everybody, it drives up inflation and it adds to the debt, okay? Trump's accounts won't flood the economy with fresh cash, but instead prime the pump of long-term investment. The money's in the market. That's going to help companies grow because those ETFs and stuff are buying stocks from companies that use the money to grow, offering a giant blow to inequality, and a boost to the socioeconomic mobility. Many voters who may not give Republicans credit this November for launching this fantastic innovation, but it's still a fantastic step toward promoting the nation's long-term prosperity. It's capitalism. It's finally teaching kids capitalism. Why? Because once you start a Trump account, and we're going to do this for our grandkids for sure, okay? Over their lifetime, you need to show them. You need to show them, hey, look, it's growing. Look at how your money's growing. So they can say, well, what? That's my money? Where'd it come from? How does this work? Well, these companies do better and their stock price goes up and your investment goes up. Oh, tell me more about that, Grandpa, right? This is genius. And Trump and Bessent and all the people around him who are financial guys, think about it. Think about it. I have people all the time who accuse me that all of Trump's people, Musk and Bessent and Z. Zeldin, all these people are just in it for themselves. They're just raiding the government like the left always does. They're raiding the government. And I've shown you the Litnick video that's on our website, WeThePeopleConvention.org. Look at the Litnick video where he talks about the things they're going to do for the American people. The things that they have done for themselves their whole lives, they're not doing for you. These people who criticize like Trump is just in it for himself use the $10 billion lawsuit against the IRS against them. But if he helps you rebuild your house in the Palisades, that's not helping Trump. He's given your kid. The Dells made a special thing. Remember, go back and look at the Michael Dell story on our website, where I showed you that they're literally looking at the zip codes in the United States that have the poorest kids in them to give their $6 billion to your kid, to kids they don't know, to kids that everyone thinks billionaires don't care about. That's another part of this story, isn't it? You got to tell it. You got to share this story. That's a big ask. I want to see you guys sharing that link like crazy because no one's paying attention because we're in World War III and we're in a civil war. And yes, all those things are true. But you got to share the good too. You just can't share the bad. This is good. This isn't good. This is great. This is American exceptionalism. And what this will do to the kids, we've got this generation of Gen Zers who we screwed. Especially white men. We destroyed their lives. We owe them a lot, and this isn't helping them. But the generations behind them, this is going to make sure they are never in the same position that the young kids today are. The 18 to 28-year-olds today are. That's progress. That's good. I'm proud of it. Another guy who would have been proud of it would have been Charlie Kirk, our friend Charlie Kirk, because he talked about helping the young kids. He helped get President Trump to think this way, to understand the problems of our youth. And we will be impacted by Charlie's influence for the rest of our lives, and he is never going to be forgotten, and we certainly are never going to forget him. He played a part in this, and we need to recognize that. And so I'm going to wrap up the podcast. You know, as always, it's critical that you share it, right? You make sure that you tell other people about this podcast, that you write to me at info@wethepeopleconvention.org and say, how do you feel about President Trump suing the IRS? You know, how do you feel about that? What do you feel about us bombing Iran and killing the Ayatollah if we do that? Write to me at info@wethepeopleconvention.org. Ron sent me the thing and said, you were wrong about China with windmills. Everything I say here has to be true. And if it's not true, You have to tell me so I can correct it. We cannot operate on bad information. We have to have good information to make good decisions. Just a fundamental truth, okay? So I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for your loyalty. I want to thank you for your donations. I want to thank you for your fight. The patriots in Georgia who just common folks like you watching this podcast wouldn't give up, knew they cheated in Georgia. They knew it, and nothing would deter them. Threats, lawsuits, everything you could do to them, and they're still standing, and they may save our nation's elections. That's who watches this podcast. That's who you are. That's who we are. That's who America is. And I'm so proud to have you as part of our organization. So proud to have you watching these podcasts. We're going to win. This year, 2026, is the year we win the war. We're going to end the Ukraine-Russia war. We're going to end the war on America by the Marxists and the Islamists this year. This year, we're going to win the war because of people like you, because of organizations like this. So stay warm. Help your neighbors. Let's pray for the weather to lift like Patton at the Battle of the Bulge. We need the weather to lift so we can repair the power lines. We can get our country going again. But take care of each other. It's nasty out there. We'll do the same. God willing, we'll both be back together. We'll all be back together next week. All right? Have a good week. Be a happy warrior. You've been listening to the We the People Convention News and Opinion, weekly News and Opinion podcast. My name is Tom Zawistowski. May God bless you and continue to bless our great nation. See you next week.
So proudly we hailed at the twilight